The roar shook the canopy like thunder splitting the jungle sky. Every species in the expedition froze, fur bristling, scales flattening, feathers puffing in instinctive terror. Equipment clattered as alien biologists dove for cover behind armored crawler treads, their luminous eyes wide and glinting in the filtered sunlight that bled through the violet leaves. Somewhere, a drone buzzed nervously, hovering as if uncertain whether to record or flee. Only one figure remained standing in the clearing, a lanky Terran in a sun-bleached explorer's jacket, chewing on a strip of dried meat and squinting into the shadowed tree line. Dr. Elias Monroe tilted his head, listening to the deep, reverberating growl that rolled across the valley again. He raised one brow and murmured, "Huh! Sounds like a big dog." 3 alien colleagues screamed at once. "Dog?" chirped Elwirka, her carapace clacking in panic as she scuttled under a hover crate. "That thing is a Growlthek Apex! They disembowel shuttlecraft for nesting material!" "Dr. Monroe, get down!" shrieked Captain Varel, his fins splaying outward in alarm. "Your soft Terran flesh cannot repel a 6-ton carnivore." Elias spat out a bit of jerky. "Soft? Hey, that's, actually, fair. But it's probably just curious." Another roar tore through the forest, closer this time, vibrating the ground under their boots. A flock of shimmering avians exploded upward like a living rainbow, screeching in alarm. The crawlers on board AI stammered warnings in half a dozen galactic languages. Predator class approaching. Threat level, terminal. Please initiate evacuation protocol. The expedition's dozen members didn't need to be told twice. They scattered. Only Elias remained where he was, shoulders squared and utterly calm. His brown eyes scanned the tree-line, and then, absurdly, he bent down, rummaged through a pack, and pulled out something bright red and round. A disc. "Monroe!" shouted Varel, halfway up the crawler's ladder. "What are you doing?" "Research," Elias said, tapping the edge of the Frisbee. "Enrichment behavior. Got a test interspecies curiosity response. The thing sounds bored. The thing eats titanium plating. Then it's got good taste." Elias had been invited, grudgingly, as the human specialist on xenofaunal behavior for the United Galactic Survey Corps' mission to Planet 3 Vega 9, or as he insisted on calling it, New Australia. The planet was a pristine biosphere, jungles thicker than ocean kelp forests, with predators that could probably bench press a truck. Humans were new to this quadrant. Their reputation had already begun circulating among alien science teams. Recklessly curious, suicidally adaptive, and unreasonably friendly with things that have teeth. Elias had done nothing to change that perception. On the second day, he'd hand-fed a 6-eyed avian predator, just to see if it liked trail mix. It had. On the fourth, he'd calmly patched a venom wound while explaining to horrified colleagues that human coagulation was basically superglue in liquid form. On the fifth, he'd been banned from approaching any creature without a tranquilizer drone escort. Now, on day 12, a Growlthek Apex had arrived. It was supposed to be impossible. Apex predators of its classification hadn't been recorded within 100 kilometers of their research zone. The team's local deterrent field should have repelled anything larger than a rodent. And yet, it was here. The trees parted like curtains of living wood, and the Growlthek emerged. It was colossal, 8 meters from snout to tail, plated with organic armor that shimmered in iridescent hues. Its head resembled a cross between a crocodile and a nightmare, eyes gleaming with bioluminescent rings of blue. Steam hissed from its nostrils as it exhaled, tasting the air. The alien scientists collectively whimpered. Some fainted. One whispered a prayer to 12 gods, 8 ancestors, and the laws of probability. Elias grinned. "Well, look at you. You're gorgeous." The Growlthek rumbled, a sound that might have been curiosity, or appetite. The human crouched slightly, then extended one arm and waggled the Frisbee. "You like fetch?" The predator tilted its massive head, nostrils flaring. Behind him, Captain Varel was broadcasting emergency calls to orbit, his gills pulsing white with fear. "Base Command, this is Field Team Theta 7. We are compromised. Apex life form contact. Send orbital deterrence immediately. Elias frowned. No, don't nuke it. It's just saying hi. The comm crackled. Did he say hi? A voice asked in disbelief. The Growlthek lunged forward, massive claws gouging trenches into the soil, a single stride covering 5 meters. The jungle erupted in birds and panic. Varel screamed. Elwire burrowed under a pile of sensor gear. The rest of the team prayed to the void. Elias didn't move. He lifted his arm, and threw. The Frisbee sliced through the humid air with a perfect, spinning arc, flashing red against the green canopy. It sailed straight past the predator's snout, and bounced off a tree root with a faint boink. The Growlthek froze. Its head turned slowly toward the fallen disk. Its nostrils flared again. Then, to the absolute disbelief of every alien watching through drone feeds, the monster took 3 slow steps forward and nudged the Frisbee with its claw. A deep rumble, not quite a growl, rolled out of its chest. Then it picked up the disk in its jaws. Elias beamed. Attaboy. The predator blinked its luminous eyes, head tilted before. It tossed the disk back. The Frisbee clattered at Elias's boots. The human bent down, picked it up, dusted it off, and said cheerfully, Well, would you look at that? Fast learner. Every alien in the crawler was frozen in open-mouthed horror. Elwire whispered, He is playing with it. Varel's frills drooped in disbelief. That is the most lethal organism on this hemisphere, and he has engaged it in recreational bonding behavior. A soft whump echoed through the clearing, another toss. The Growlthek bounded after the disk like an oversized, bioengineered retriever, tail crashing through underbrush, pulverizing trees but very clearly not attacking. Drone footage from above captured the impossible sight, a human and a galactic apex predator engaging in what could only be described as a game of fetch. Command would later replay that footage hundreds of times. At the moment, however, the field team was paralyzed between awe and existential dread. Elias, meanwhile, had slipped entirely into trainer mode, voice low, tone encouraging. Yeah, good catch. Nice form. You're a natural. He crouched as the predator dropped the Frisbee in front of him, steam rolling off its jaws. He patted its snout carefully. Not bad. Bit of slobber, though. The Growlthek's rumble deepened, but its pupils, twin rings of neon, dilated in what looked, bizarrely, like contentment. For several minutes, the clearing existed in surreal stillness, the gentle whir of drone rotors, the distant calls of alien birds, and the rhythmic sound of a human throwing a toy to an apex predator. Finally, Captain Varel found his voice. Dr. Monroe, step away slowly. Elias scratched the creature's armored chin. Why would I do that? We're bonding. Bonding? That creature's bite radius encompasses a small vehicle. Elias shrugged. So does my ex-wife's temper. Still married her for 3 years. Several aliens blinked, trying to parse the metaphor. Elwire hissed. Humans are defective. Or brilliant, murmured one of the drone operators. No known species has survived Growlthek proximity without casualties. He's changing its behavior. The comm from orbit crackled again. Theta 7, we are tracking an unclassified apex signature. Please confirm survival status. Elias leaned toward Varel's wrist communicator. All good up here. Made a friend. A pause. Then, say again? I said made a friend. Gonna need a bigger Frisbee, though. Night fell quickly on Vega 9. Bioluminescent vines draped across the forest, painting everything in shades of green and blue. The Growlthek had curled up on the edge of the clearing, massive body coiled protectively, not around the humans, but near them. The field team dared not move. Elias, sitting cross-legged beside a campfire, was roasting something over the flames. The predator's glowing eyes followed the motion of the stick with intense focus. You want a bite? He asked conversationally. It's just synth beef. The Growlthek huffed, nostrils flaring. Elias tossed it a chunk. The predator snapped it up delicately, making a pleased rumble that shook the embers. You're welcome. Elwire peeking from behind the crawler, whispered, "He is feeding it." Voluntarily. Varel rubbed his forehead in despair. The human fed the apex predator. And it liked it, Elias said proudly. See? Food, fetch, friendship. Classic triad? This is madness. Elias glanced over. Nah. It's just communication. Different languages, same instincts. Curiosity, play, trust. You folks have too many rules for first contact. You forget how to say hi. He tossed another piece of synth beef. The growlthek caught it midair. The jungle thrummed softly with alien life. In the dim light, the predator's hide shimmered like living metal, terrifying, beautiful, and strangely peaceful. Elias smiled, resting his elbows on his knees. Tomorrow, he muttered, we teach you to roll over. The creature blinked slowly, tail thudding against the ground with a low, seismic boom. Somewhere deep in the forest, another roar echoed, distant, answered by the first. Elias glanced toward the sound. Oh, he said lightly. You've got friends too. Varel groaned. By the void, there are more? The human grinned. Guess I'll need more frisbees. The next morning began with a sound that could have cracked mountains. A roar, deeper than thunder, rolled across the valley and made every creature, from skittering leaf lizards to the towering gliders overhead, freeze mid-motion. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath. Dr. Elias Monroe didn't. He was standing on a boulder in a loose t-shirt, one hand shading his eyes, Frisbee tucked under the other arm like a prized relic. That's my guy, he called out cheerfully. Morning, sunshine. The alien research team behind him was less enthusiastic. Captain Varel's gills flared with sheer panic. Doctor, that roar came from the north quadrant. That's a second apex. There are now 2 growltheks in proximity. Elias blinked. Cool. Double fetch. Double death, shrieked Elwirka, scrabbling up the crawler's side panels. The deterrent field failed overnight. We are inside a convergence zone. Elias gave a casual thumbs up. Then we'll just be friendly to both. The first growlthek, the one that had spent the night beside their camp like a nuclear-powered house cat, stirred and rose to its full, terrifying height. Steam vented from its jaw vents, and its dorsal plates glowed faintly as it looked toward the distant echo of the other roar. The ground trembled. Another massive shape was moving through the forest toward them, tearing through trees with the ease of someone brushing aside grass. 2 apexes in the same territory, Varel murmured, horrified. They'll fight to the death. Elias gave him a sideways grin. Unless someone keeps them busy. Before anyone could stop him, the human jogged forward, Frisbee in hand. Dr. Monroe! Varel shouted. You cannot possibly. I can possibly, Elias said over his shoulder. Trust me. The first growlthek emitted a resonant bellow, a sound so loud the air itself seemed to shiver. The approaching creature answered with a shriek that set leaves fluttering down like rain. Every alien within sight dove behind equipment, hands clamped over auditory receptors. Elias, deaf to common sense, stood between them both. The newcomer burst from the forest like a living avalanche. This one was larger, darker scales, older scars, heavier dorsal armor. It was magnificent and monstrous, its claws leaving molten gouges where they struck rock. The 2 predators locked eyes, and the jungle fell silent except for the slow crackle of biothermal heat rising from their hides. They began to circle each other. Varel's voice trembled through the calm. We are witnessing a dominance duel. If they engage, everything within 50 meters will be destroyed. Good thing I brought toys, Elias muttered. The first growlthek growled low, the sound a mix of warning and confusion. Elias raised the frisbee high. Hey, big guy! He shouted to the newcomer. You play catch? Both apex predators paused, as if processing what this tiny, squishy mammal had just said. Elias wound up and flung the disc straight between them. It sailed in a perfect arc, glinting red as it spun through the filtered sunlight. The older growlthek snapped its head sideways, catching the flash of motion. Its instincts, honed for chasing fast prey, kicked in. With a deep, ground-shaking whump, it leapt forward, jaws snapping. The Frisbee vanished between teeth the size of machetes. Elias grinned. Nice catch! The first Growlthek rumbled in what sounded suspiciously like jealousy. It lunged, tail swiping a crater into the dirt, and barked, a subsonic shockwave that rattled the crawler's windows. The older one responded in kind, dropping the Frisbee and roaring back. Great! Elias sighed. Sibling rivalry. Just my luck. He stepped forward and pointed between them. No fighting. Play nice. Take turns. Every alien watching believed, with absolute certainty, that this would be the moment the human was reduced to a red mist. Instead, both Growltheks stopped. Their dorsal lights dimmed slightly. Their heads tilted, first at each other, then back at the human who had somehow inserted himself into their dominance display like a referee who hadn't read the rulebook. The older one let out a soft, rumbling huff and dropped the Frisbee at Elias's feet. Elias crouched, picked it up, and said, Good boy. He gave the second apex a pat on its plated muzzle. The temperature readings spiked briefly, then leveled off. See? He said over his shoulder. Diplomacy. Varel nearly fainted. By midday, both apex predators were lounging near the camp, their bodies coiled like living mountains of scale and armor. Drones circled nervously overhead, broadcasting footage that would later cause 27 separate xenobiology conferences to collapse from cognitive dissonance. Elias sat cross-legged between the two creatures, sipping coffee from a thermos. The Growltheks watched him intently, two colossal pairs of glowing eyes following every motion of the red disk on his lap. Patience, Elias said. One at a time. He tossed the Frisbee to the left. The younger Growlthek caught it midair, tail wagging in what could only be described as joy. It bounded off through the trees, scattering dust and leaves like a storm. The second one rumbled expectantly. Don't worry, Elias told it. You'll get your turn. The alien scientists observed from a cautious distance. They were recording everything: heart rates, movement patterns, neurochemical emissions. The readings made no sense. This is unprecedented, whispered Elwirka. Their aggression levels are dropping. Neural telemetry suggests amusement. Amusement? Varel croaked. That word does not belong in the same sentence as apex death beast. Yet the data confirms it, said another researcher. The human is modulating their pack behavior through play. Varel pressed his fins flat in disbelief. Play. He is teaching predators to play. Elias gave a casual salute. Best way to earn trust is to have fun together. Works on dogs, kids, and apparently ancient killing machines. The older Growlthek lowered its massive head until its snout was inches from Elias. Hot air gusted over him like an industrial vent. He scratched its jawline. You're a good girl, aren't you? The predator blinked slowly. Its rumble was low, almost like a cat's purr, if the cat were the size of a shuttle. Varel muttered. He named it girl. He assigned gender to the unsexed apex. He is beyond help. By the end of the second day, word of the incident had reached orbit. The Survey Corps had dispatched an observation vessel, and its commander was very clear on protocol. Do not interfere. Do not provoke. Record and await extraction. But extraction was suddenly impossible. Late that afternoon, the jungle began to change. The local wildlife, small herbivores, scavengers, even mid-level predators, began to flee en masse, creating a stampede that shook the valley floor. The Growltheks both raised their heads sharply, hissing. Elwirka checked her scanner. Another apex signature! Massive thermal spike approaching from Sector East. Varel's voice went tight. A third? There cannot be three in one ecosystem. They are territorial to extinction. Elias stood up, Frisbee in hand. Guess we're hosting a reunion. The third Growlthek broke through the tree-line, this one far larger than the other two, its hide scarred and glowing with biothermal fissures. Its breath came in rhythmic blasts of vapor that hung like fog. It roared, a sound so immense that several drones shorted out midair. Both of Elias's friends answered with bellows of their own, the air trembling with tension. The team's instruments screamed alerts. Energy surge, biochemical aggression levels off the charts. Elias exhaled slowly. Okay, big guy. No fighting today. The new apex stalked forward, eyes locked on him. Varel shouted. Run, you fool! Elias stayed perfectly still. Nah. Running makes predators chase. He lifted the Frisbee, bright red, spinning slightly between his fingers. You want the shiny thing? The third Growlthek paused. Its gaze flicked toward the disc. Elias smiled. Yeah, you do. And he threw it. The Frisbee whirled through the air, slicing sunlight, spinning farther than any normal human throw had a right to go. The apex's gaze followed it instinctively, muscles bunching, body pivoting, and then, with a seismic boom, it leapt after it. Trees exploded outward as it crashed through the jungle after the flying disc. Elias turned to the other two. Well? Go get it! The two predators roared in unison and bounded after their rival, the forest vanishing under their colossal forms. Silence returned, broken only by the distant echoes of thudding footsteps and delighted bellows. Elias dusted his hands. Problem solved. Half an hour later, the trio returned. Astonishingly, none of them were bleeding. The largest apex dropped the Frisbee at Elias's feet. He looked up at its towering form, then at the other two sitting obediently beside it. Oh, he murmured. You're the Alpha. The Alpha rumbled, lowering its head until its glowing eyes met his. Elias stared back for several tense seconds, then slowly reached forward and patted the massive creature's nose. Good throw, he said softly. The Alpha blinked. And then it bowed its head. Varel made a strangled sound that might have been a laugh or a nervous breakdown. The apex leader has accepted him as pack leader. Elwirka squeaked. Humans are not a species, they are a glitch in evolution. Elias chuckled. Nah. We're just social animals with too much confidence. That night, the camp was ringed by three colossal, slumbering Growltheks. Their slow breathing echoed like drums. The alien scientists, trapped in a mixture of awe and disbelief, huddled inside the crawler. Elias sat outside by the fire, leaning against the Alpha's warm flank, writing notes into his datapad. He spoke softly into his recorder. Observation log, day 13. Subject species Growlthek apex. Behavioral shift from territorial aggression to cooperative play confirmed. Indicates potential for social conditioning via reward loop interaction. Secondary hypothesis. Positive reinforcement transcends evolutionary hostility when applied with consistency, patience, and probably Frisbees. He smiled faintly and looked up at the stars, glowing like cold silver eyes above the treetops. Maybe the universe isn't as scary as everyone thinks, he murmured. Maybe it just never had anyone throw it a toy before. The Alpha's tail thudded once, a quiet, approving boom that echoed into the night. The sky cracked open with thunder that wasn't weather. It began at dawn, a vibration deep in the soil that made even the Growltheks lift their armored heads in alarm. The alien researchers scrambled from their tents, scanners screaming warnings. Overhead, the serene lavender sky of Vega 9 shimmered with a strange, geometric distortion, like glass flexing under heat. Elias Monroe took one look at the horizon and muttered, "Oh hell! That's not a storm." From orbit, the Survey Corps had finally lost their patience. A command beacon pierced the atmosphere, dropping through the clouds like a spear of light. The voice of Commander Rain came through the comms. Field Team Theta 7, you are ordered to evacuate immediately. Planetary-class Predator concentration is unsustainable. We are initiating sterilization protocol to prevent population collapse. Sterilization protocol? Varel's frills went stark white. They mean orbital bombardment. Elwirka hissed. They intend to erase the ecosystem. Elias's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. You're gonna nuke my dogs? They are not dogs! Varel shouted, voice breaking. They are apex megafauna capable of. Yeah, Elias said quietly. Capable of trusting us. He looked toward the three Growlthecks resting near the camp, enormous, majestic, eyes half closed in lazy contentment. The Alpha tilted its head at the rising hum in the sky, uneasy. Elias shoved his mug aside and stood. No one's nuking anybody. The first streak of plasma tore through the upper clouds, a distant white-hot arc. The Growlthecks roared in unison, a chorus of fury and confusion that rattled the trees. Their bioluminescent ridges flared bright gold, and the Alpha's claws sank deep into the earth. They're panicking, Wirecock cried. Their stress levels are catastrophic. Then let's calm them, Elias said. Calm? Monroe, there is orbital fire inbound. Elias jogged toward the nearest predator, waving his arms. Hey! Hey! Eyes on me! Focus! The Alpha swung its head down, growling low. The other two paced restlessly, tails slicing through trunks like machetes. Elias held up his hands. Easy. Not your fault. But if those ships think you're a threat, they'll drop a sun on us. We gotta show 'em you're not. He turned to the team. Get the drones airborne. Broadcast live visual to command. I want eyes on this. Varel stammered. What are you planning? Elias grabbed the Frisbee from his pack and spun it between his fingers. Demonstration. The bombardment countdown continued, each beep echoing from orbit like a drumbeat of doom. Elias walked to the center of the clearing and whistled sharply. 3 pairs of glowing eyes snapped to him. All right, team, he called out, voice steady despite the growing thunder above. Fetch. He threw the Frisbee. It soared high, impossibly high, arcing through the air like a bright red comet. The Alpha lunged after it with explosive grace, muscles rippling, claws gouging furrows into the soil. The smaller two bounded alongside, their combined movement shaking the valley floor. The Frisbee vanished behind a ridge, then, a heartbeat later, the Alpha reappeared, triumphant, the disc clamped gently in its jaws. The orbital sensors captured everything. A human, unarmed, surrounded by monsters, playing. The comm from orbit crackled with disbelief. Theta 7, are we seeing this live? Varel seized the mic. Yes, Commander. Stand down the strike. Behavioral reclassification required. The apexes are under human influence. Silence hung for a long moment, broken only by the wind. Then Commander Rain's voice came, uncertain. Continue broadcast. Elias knelt and patted the Alpha's muzzle. Good job, girl. The creature rumbled softly, lowering its head until it touched his shoulder, a gesture of trust so foreign, so intimate, that the entire team forgot to breathe. The sky above flared again, this time not a weapon, but something stranger. A ripple of light spread outward like a ring dropped into water. Wirecott checked her scanner. That is not the Survey Corps. Unknown source. Massive energy field expanding across the valley. The Growlthec snarled, backing up. A fourth shape emerged from the distortion, vast, translucent, wings like glass blades reflecting the morning sun. Elias blinked. Okay. That's new. The creature was larger than all 3 apexes combined, the mythical skygrowl, a species believed extinct for millennia. Its body shimmered between matter and energy, half alive, half light. The Alpha bellowed in challenge, dorsal plates blazing blue. The skygrowl answered with a shriek that rattled every bone in every chest. Oh, wonderful! Varel groaned. Now we angered a god. Elias took one long breath. Guess it's game time. The new arrival dove. Its descent carved a hurricane through the jungle. Elias was thrown backward, caught only because the Alpha shifted its body to shield him. Trees snapped, equipment tumbled, and the crawler's alarm screamed. The 2 ground Growlthecks charged the intruder, roaring defiance. The air filled with blinding light and the crack of colliding bodies. They're protecting him. Wirecott gasped. They think he's part of their pack. Then I'd better act like it. Elias muttered, scrambling to his feet. The skygrowl slammed one of the smaller predators aside, sending it crashing through the forest. The Alpha reared up, claws striking sparks as they met the creature's energy-slick hide. Come on, Elias whispered. You can do it, girl. But even the Alpha was staggering under the assault. The skygrowl's form pulsed with waves of plasma, its screech shaking loose rock from the valley walls. The human made a decision no rational being would ever make. He ran toward it. "Monroe!" Varel screamed. "You cannot! Watch me!" Elias sprinted across the ravaged clearing, the red Frisbee clutched tight. The air burned against his skin as energy flares whipped past. He slid to a stop between the Alpha and the towering apparition. "Hey!" he shouted. "Over here, big shiny!" The skygrowl turned, focusing all its incandescent fury on him. Elias raised the Frisbee high. "You like catch?" For one insane moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then he threw. The disc cut through the heat shimmer, spinning faster than sight. The skygrowl hesitated, its predatory instinct overriding cosmic pride. Its head tilted. Reflex. It followed the motion. The Frisbee arced perfectly upward, reflecting sunlight like a flare, and the creature's luminous eyes tracked it. That was all the Alpha needed. With an earth-shattering roar, it lunged, crashing into the skygrowl's torso. The impact sent shockwaves ripping through the air. Energy flared, lightning danced across the canopy. Elias was thrown off his feet, tumbling through grass and dust. He hit the ground hard but rolled with it, coughing, blinking through blinding light. When his vision cleared, he saw the impossible. The Alpha and the skygrowl locked together, glowing claws against glowing wings. And then, incredibly, the Frisbee descended, spinning lazily between them. The skygrowl caught it. For a long, stunned heartbeat, everything stopped. The creature looked at the disc and its translucent claws, confused. The Alpha, panting, stared back. Elias, half buried in dirt, whispered, "Yeah, that's right. Toys, not teeth." The skygrowl made a low, resonant hum, not rage this time, but something gentler, older. It turned its massive head toward him. The human slowly stood, dusted himself off, and opened his arms. "Welcome to the pack." The light around the skygrowl dimmed. Its enormous wings folded gracefully. It set the Frisbee down beside Elias and bowed, the same gesture the Alpha had used. A wave of energy pulsed outward, soft as wind through grass, erasing the tension from the air. Elwirka dropped her scanner in disbelief. It submitted. Varel could only stare. He tamed a myth. The sky cleared, the geometric distortions fading until only sunlight remained. From orbit, Commander Rain's voice came through, hushed. "Field Team Theta 7, the bombardment is cancelled. For the record, Dr. Monroe, you just redefined interspecies diplomacy." Elias leaned against the Alpha's side, breathing hard, sweat streaked with soot. "Glad to help. Just maybe send more Frisbees next time." The Alpha rumbled approvingly. Above them, the skygrowl unfurled its wings again, not in threat, but in farewell. It launched upward with a gale that bent trees sideways, vanishing into the glowing clouds. The remaining predators watched it go, silent and calm. Elias dropped to sit on the scorched ground, laughing breathlessly. "You see that? That's how you end a fight, confuse them with kindness." Elwirka poked her head out from behind the wrecked crawler. "Humans are not logical." "Never said we were," Elias said, tossing the Frisbee from hand to hand. "We just improvise." The Alpha nudged him gently, almost knocking him over. He grinned up at it. "You did good, girl." It blinked, eyes glowing soft blue, and rested its head beside him. The jungle was quiet again, not dead quiet, but alive quiet, the kind of stillness that follows understanding rather than fear. Varel emerged from the ruins of the crawler, voice shaky. "Dr. Monroe, the Council will want to meet you personally. And possibly dissect you for study." Elias laughed. "They can get in line. I've got fetch practice in the morning." That night, under a bruised violet sky, the camp was calm. Fires flickered. The predators slept. Elias sat on a log, Frisbee in lap, watching the stars. He spoke into his recorder again. "Observation log, day 14. Addendum, subject pack expanded. Behavioral modification appears contagious across species lines, evidence that curiosity and play may trigger dormant cooperative instincts, even in apex organisms. Note to self, maybe the universe isn't built on survival of the fittest. Maybe it's built on survival of whoever's willing to throw first, and mean it in friendship. He clicked the recorder off and looked at his reflection in the Frisbee's red surface. Yeah, he murmured. That'll do. The Alpha's tail thumped once behind him, slow and steady. High above, in orbit, the Survey Corps ship drifted silently, still transmitting footage that would shake galactic science for generations. And somewhere in the dark distance, far beyond the jungle, another roar answered, softer this time. Curious. Elias smiled. Guess word spreading. The predator's growl was lower now, more puzzled than furious. The clearing smelled of ozone and burnt bark. The soldiers of the 7th Expeditionary Unit crouched behind an overturned transport, weapons humming, eyes locked on the human standing in the open, and the monster watching him. The human, Lieutenant Jonas Cade, didn't blink. His hand clutched something small and circular, a bright yellow disc that seemed almost ridiculous after all that had happened. The predator, designated KRYTH Class Apex Form 12, jaws like serrated metal, sniffed the air, smoke curling from its nostrils. The moment stretched taut as wire. Jonas, hissed Sergeant Nira over the comms, voice trembling. Do not do what I think you're about to. But Jonas already had. The Frisbee sliced through the air with a cheerful whistle, spinning end over end, sunlight glinting off its plastic curve. It made an absurd whoosh as it sailed right toward the creature's face. Every soldier held their breath. Even the predator seemed confused. Then, the giant head snapped sideways, jaws closing not in rage but in reflex. The Frisbee vanished in its teeth. The predator blinked, crunching experimentally. Its ears twitched. A noise came out of its throat, something between a rumble and a confused huff. Jonas grinned. Good boy. The soldiers didn't dare move. The alien scientists who had been monitoring from the ridge were frozen mid-note, their hollow scribes recording the impossible. The KRYTH Class Apex Form 12, a creature that had shredded armored drones like paper and terrified entire platoons into retreat, lowered its head slightly. Its golden eyes locked on Jonas again. Then it spat out the Frisbee. It hit the ground with a dusty thunk. Jonas whistled. Yeah. That's right. Bring it back. Jonas, hissed Nira. It's not a dog. It's a bioweapon. It just devoured a whole scout team. Uh-huh, Jonas said calmly, hand outstretched. But look at him. He's just confused. Probably bored. The soldiers exchanged horrified looks. The alien scientists whispered furiously to each other in clicks and pulses of light. This wasn't just reckless, it was madness. But then the impossible happened again. The predator, massive, taloned, armored in obsidian scales, nudged the Frisbee forward with its snout. A deep rumbling sound came from its chest. Jonas's grin widened. Yeah, I thought so. He crouched and picked up the disc again. This time, when he threw it, the predator leapt. A wall of muscle and claws soared through the air. Its wings, previously folded and torn, snapped wide open, catching the thermals. The disc flew into the treeline, the creature right behind it. The resulting impact made the entire valley tremble. When the predator re-emerged, it wasn't roaring. It was wagging its tail. A tail that had crushed tanks. The command channel exploded. Lieutenant Cade, stand down! Barked Commander Ruvek from the control tent miles away. You're in violation of containment protocol. That creature is not to be. Commander, Jonas said, voice casual but steady. Respectfully, if I stand down, it gets bored again. And when it's bored, he nodded at a pile of smoldering mechs. It plays rough. For a long, stunned moment, no one replied. Then, faintly, laughter broke over the calm. Someone, a human tech, said, You've gotta be kidding me. But Jonas wasn't kidding. He threw the Frisbee again. And again. And every time, the predator fetched it, less violently each time, as if remembering what gentle, might mean. By the fourth throw, even Nira had crept out from behind the transport. She was shaking her head in disbelief. You're actually training it. Jonas shrugged. Bonding's universal. Throw something, catch something, build trust. The alien scientists were losing their collective minds. Their leader, a shimmering entity of blue light named Tor, pulsed furiously. The apex form does not bond. It only kills. It cannot comprehend. The predator padded up to Jonas, dropped the frisbee at his feet, and made a low, chuffing sound. Tor's light flickered. Impossible. Jonas patted the massive snout. Yeah, we get that a lot. He looked up, noticing the wrecked valley, the broken armor, the hundreds of terrified soldiers peeking out from cover. Slowly, he raised his hand. It's safe. Mostly. Mostly? Nira yelped. The predator turned its head toward her voice and rumbled. She froze, until Jonas snapped his fingers. Hey! Eyes on me, big guy! The creature's gaze returned instantly. See? Jonas said softly. Positive reinforcement. Within the hour, the impossible scene turned into something surreal. The human unit, armed to the teeth and ready for annihilation, was now sitting around a massive apex predator that occasionally nudged them for scratches behind the ears. Jonas tossed the frisbee again, laughing as the ground shook with each thunderous stride. What the hell did you even do? Nira finally asked, staring at the creature gnawing on the disc like a chewed toy. Jonas leaned back on a rock, smirking. My sister's got a Great Dane. Learned a few tricks. But this thing could swallow a Great Dane whole. Yeah, but apparently all it wanted was attention. By dusk, the scientists approached carefully. They'd already rewritten half their biology reports. Tor floated forward, its voice tight with restrained awe. Human Cade, you have altered a fundamental assumption of xenobiology. This species, this apex form, responds to play? Jonas tossed the frisbee again, watching the monster crash joyfully through the tree-line. Play's universal, he said quietly. Doesn't matter the planet. For a long while, silence hung over the clearing except for the distant thuds of the predator bounding after its toy. When it returned, it dropped the disc and, very carefully, lowered its massive body beside Jonas, curling up like a housecat the size of a shuttle. Jonas grinned. Guess we're friends now. Nira exhaled. You just domesticated a galactic nightmare. Jonas said, patting the beast's snout. Humans are good at making friends with monsters. That line traveled fast. Within hours, every species on the expedition network was watching the feed. The image of the human with the apex pet became viral across hundreds of systems. The phrase, just throw it a frisbee, became a meme for impossible problems with stupidly simple human solutions. By the time command arrived in person, the situation was out of control in the best possible way. The creature, now affectionately dubbed Fetch, refused to leave Jonas's side. It guarded the camp perimeter, purred when scratched, and growled at anyone raising their voice. The aliens who once saw humans as fragile now studied them with wary fascination. Later, when the formal report was filed, Tor summarized the event in a single line. Human response to apex aggression, non-hostile engagement through play object. Results, inconceivable. In his personal notes, Jonas added one more. Turns out, everyone just wants to play catch. As night fell over the alien moon, the predator lifted its head toward the twin suns' dying glow. Jonas sat beside it, flicking the frisbee between his fingers. Not bad for our first game, huh? He said. The creature huffed, almost amused. Jonas chuckled. Tomorrow, we'll teach you fetch and release. Baby steps. The camera drones hovering above zoomed in, broadcasting the absurd, heartwarming sight of a human sitting beside a creature that had once been a symbol of destruction, now dozing peacefully under his hand. The galaxy watched in disbelief. On that day, they learned something terrifying and wonderful about humanity. It wasn't that humans were fearless. It was that they refused to see monsters where they could see friends. And sometimes, all it took to stop a war was a frisbee.